We begin this news broadcast in Nyeri County, where 4 families have been thrust into mourning following an attack at a quarry in Mandera last Thursday. It is emerging that the incident that has been condemned as a terrorist attack may have been fueled by business rivalry. Raquel Mugai spoke to the families affected and now brings us this story.
The death of 48-year-old Paul Kamau during the fateful Thursday night at Shimbir Fatuma in Mandera is what has been haunting his family of 4. His wife, who appears distraught, yet to come to terms with the death of the family's breadwinner, a man who accepted a work request by a friend to work in a Mandera quarry.
Sasa alitoka hapa January 23 wakaenda huko Mandera. Lakini tulikuwa tunaongea na yeye, lakini wakimaliza kama tuseme kaa wiki mbili hivi alinipigia simu akaniambia wanaambiwa watapigwa. Sasa akaniambia akipata fare atakuja.
That was the last conversation she had with Macharia as the fare he awaited appeared to drag him onto his final days on earth. And just a few kilometers from this household in Chaka lies the family of John Macharia, who also lost his life in the attack. Macharia left for Mandera following a land dispute that put a tag on his life and that of his grandmother, his hopes to eke out a living and depend on himself.
Alikuwa hapa on December, lakini kwa mwezi wa pili akaniambia mimi nyanya natoka kutoka hapa nikibiria usalama wangu, maana alikuwa hana usalama. Nilikuwa nasema anko wao wanataka kumuua.
According to SOSSION, however, a name we've given this worker in Mandera, the attack was not a plan hatched by Al-Shabaab militants, but one that was fueled by business rivalry.
Wao wenyewe wanalipicha kisasi kwa sababu najua watu wa mawe, najua kama wako na fundi mingi wanaenda wanaua hii fundi kwa sababu hawataki nini asaidike. Haswa visasi kwa sababu mimi niko na pesa mingi, naenda navuruta watu wangu na huku down Kenya na wapeleka Mandera kwa sababu nataka pesa huko. Sasa vile nimevuruta watu na vuruta watu kama 20 hivi napeleka huko. Huyu na yeye kwa sababu hana hiyo pesa ya kuvuruta hao watu anasikia wivu.
Quarry attacks usually target men who form a majority of the workforce, but as a SOSSION narrates, these attacks usually come with a warning.
Nilipigiwa simu saa 12 na watu walikuwa wameuawa saa 10. Nikaambiwa gulari wenu wameuawa huko Mandera. Nikauliza gulari wangapi wameuawa huko? Bado hatujajua vizuri, but ni watu 7 hivi vile tunaona. Sasa mimi nasikia sasa ni watu 4. Sasa sijui hao wengine wamefichwa wapi.
Nyeri County has borne the brunt of these attacks whenever they occur. The total number of those who have died from within Nyeri County totaling to 45 since 2014, when the first major attack occurred in Korome Quarry in December. But despite the quarries in Mandera being described as easy to work in compared to Nyeri, there has to be more that keeps these young men to continue risking their lives in Mandera.
Mandera kuko na pesa mingi sana kuliko hapa. Najua hapa fiti inalipishwa shilingi 8. Huko ni 30, 32, 40, even 45.
As SOSSION prepares to return to Mandera once the tension subsides, the families of Paul Kamau and John Macharia hope and pray that the government will intervene to save other families from a similar pain. This is just one of the major quarries here in Nyeri County that have been deserted by youths who opt to work in Mandera for better pay. Unfortunately, they get caught up in business rivalries and not Al-Shabaab attacks as most will believe. But that will remain a simple truth to the families of those affected and those residing in Mandera. Raquel Mugai, KTN News in Chaka, Nyeri County.
And in the world of politics, Baringo Senator Gideon Moi is asking Rift Valley politicians in Jubilee to stop dragging the name of former President Daniel Moi into the 2022 succession talks. Moi said that he was ready to absorb all the insults and dirty politics on himself, urging politicians to observe a decorum.
Leaders converged at Mochongoi in Baringo County for the burial ceremony of the late Baringo South Member of Parliament, Grace Kipchoim. Succession politics took center stage, with the politicians of the Rift Valley, allied to William Ruto, accusing Moi of allegedly blocking Ruto from meeting former President Daniel Moi at his Kabarak home on Thursday.
But Gideon, I urge you to leave this idea of the presidency. And I want to ask Gideon, how can you allow Raila Odinga to visit Mzee at his home and lock out William Ruto, who is the son of the soil?
You have performed in a manner that we can only reward you to be the president of Kenya. And not because we love you, and you are not deputy president for Kalenjin. You are the deputy president of Kenya.
Wengi wamesema yale ambayo walitaka kusema.
It's not bad to speak your mind, but you should not use abusive words. And I want to urge leaders, especially from Rift Valley, to leave alone the former president out of politics. And if anyone feels to abuse, let them abuse me, not Mzee. Some politicians say one thing today and another thing tomorrow, and never stand by their words. Leaders should sell their manifestos and stop singing the name of Gideon.
Sodom ule Gideon yakitonon kila saa ku Gideon mbani.
On Thursday, a statement from the former president's office said Moi could not meet Ruto as he was undergoing routine physiotherapy session with his doctors for the entire duration of the visit. Moi instead offered to meet Ruto's delegation at a convenient time on a later date in the very near future.
Seeing the narrative from the statement from the former president's place, and from Ruto's side, very shy to respond on that statement by Moi's office, is that it looks to me like there was no clear outright appointment with the former president. First of all, there is a private secretary who is a gatekeeper for the president, not his son. The son is not the gatekeeper of the father. There is a private secretary by the name of John Locorio, and with assistance. So one would want to know, did Mr. Locorio put on his diary the visit by the deputy president?
Moi said he'll distance himself from politics since he had come purposely to grieve with the family of the late Kipchoim, but will return at a later date to spell out his agenda for 2022.
At the end of the day, Mwananchi ataamua.
The deputy president steered clear of politics despite MPs rattling the airwaves in drumming support for him to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto eulogized the late Kipchoim as a friend and great peacemaker. Ruto also read President Uhuru Kenyatta's condolence message to the family.
The cruel hand of death has robbed us of a devoted leader and a mentor who you will all agree with me was a role model for many. Her accomplishments are a clear demonstration, especially to the youth, that focus, diligence, and determination pays.
The late Grace Kipchoim was buried at Kimoriot in Mochongoi Division. She died of cancer. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
This comes as KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli calls for support for the proposed change of government structure. Atwoli says there is nothing wrong with forming an inclusive government. He spoke in Kisumu.
I did say that this country to be peaceful after elections, we need all-inclusive constitution so that everyone is a winner, particularly amongst the contenders. Everybody is a winner. And to do so, we must reintroduce Boma's draft constitution. That is all-inclusive. Even if you win elections as a president and people are dying, how will it benefit you? It is better to think about, to think bigger than, or to think big than being selfish. That's what I said. And it might have not gone well with some other people. They have gone on to say, oh, I said, oh, President Uhuru should be a prime minister or should be what? If we have about 6 slots or 7 slots, including positions for eminent persons as advisors to government, after Uhuru's term, why shouldn't he occupy one of them?
Controversy surrounding the ouster of NAT Secretary General Wilson Sissoon continues. This is after members of the Union National Executive Council attempted to eject the nominated legislator out of his Nairobi office. The council proceeded to install Hesbon Otieno as acting Secretary General.
It would begin with a plea and then some prayers.
Teachers feel fragmented.
After which a mock swearing-in ceremony took place. Before finally the singing began. Welcome to the world of Kenya's trade union battles, the Kenya National Union of Teachers edition. This group, consisting of members of the union's National Executive Council, were intent on forcefully evicting Wilson SOSSION from the office of the Secretary General. The change of guard, spearheaded by these two individuals, the chairman of the union, Wycliffe Omuchei, and the former Deputy Secretary General, now Acting Secretary General, Hesbon Otieno.
Article 9C7, which says this: the National Executive Council may suspend or dismiss or replace any officer of the union for negligence of duty, dishonesty, incompetency, or for failure to obey its decisions.
But Wilson SOSSION is dancing to a different tune, and he also has the appropriate clauses from the NAT Constitution to back him up.
Any national official of the union may be suspended from office by a 2/3 majority decision of all members entitled to attend and vote at the National Executive Council.
The evident split within the union coming just days after SOSSION moved to court seeking an order to reinstate him as the union's Secretary General, pending a hearing to the case. But the new leadership will hear none of that, insisting that the court order had been surpassed by time after it was delivered days after the Registrar of Labour Unions had struck SOSSION's name out of their list.
I was not suspended.
The authority is with the members of the National Executive Council, and it is very clear it is constitutional.
When you meet him, advise him. Yes. And pray for him. Yes. And pray for him. Let him know how to work with other people.
Even though SOSSION was not around when the council had come to eject him from his office, the heavy presence of police was notable, with the National Executive Council dismissing calls by the nominated Member of Parliament to call for a special sitting of the annual Delegates Convention in June to rectify the hostile situation plaguing the union.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity!
This even as the same unity song,
for the union makes us strong,
is sung by two camps deeply divided, an oxymoron that has now been the characteristic at the union's headquarters. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Now, heavy rains continue to take over their toll in parts of the country. In Kuria, residents are being asked to move to safer areas as hundreds are reported to be displaced.
From gushing waters and soaked soils to abandoned homes. That's the new face of Kuria, the result of recent heavy rains. And there's more. Broken families are emerging. At least 10 have been counted in Banyavasi village.
Nimeama na watoto wangu kwenda kwa mti mwingine. Na chakula yote imeenda na maji. Niko na watoto 9.
Their neighbor has been left with a newborn baby. No one knows where the men have gone to. The cries of the children ring out loud. It may be from hunger. Lack of food is yet another facet of this new Kuria.
Imekuja imegura na chakula yote. Sisi hatuna mahali pa kulala. Mama yangu ametoroka anatuacha saa hii ametuanza kutusanya. Chakula hatuna, ndama zimekufa. Baba ametoroka na ng'ombe zote hatujui alienda wapi.
Over 100 homes have been destroyed by the raging waters, and close to 200 families forced to spend sleepless nights in the cold. Memusi Peace Market once stood here, proud and strong. but not anymore. Close to 80 traders are now counting their losses. Memusi was launched 3 years ago by the Migori County government in a move to reconcile the warring clans of Bairege and Banyavasi, a symbol of peace.
Tunaomba serikali kama inawezekana itusaidie, itupe security, alafu tupate kujengea hata viosi kile ambaye inadumu, ile maji ambayo haiwezi kusomba.
Even the dead have not been left to rest in peace. The body of the late John Chacha was reburied as the fresh grave suffered under the fast-moving waters. And now local leaders are asking for help for their people.
So many floods around that we have experienced of late, and it's something that has never happened since. If you reference to the 2007 El Nino rains, we did not experience this kind of a flood and the damages that we are experiencing now.
The calls for help come as the Kenya Red Cross Society has launched an emergency appeal for 499 million shillings to assist 150,000 people affected by the heavy rains. At least 15 counties have been earmarked for assistance. According to the Kenya Red Cross Society, more than 112 people have died since the rains started. Ellen Wanjiro, KTN News.
A burial dispute between a husband and the family of the late wife culminated in the burial of the deceased at night to avoid any prolonged interference. In the burial earlier, Nairobi court had directed that the husband had the right to bury his late wife despite objections from the wife's family.
Beatrice Nyongesa died about 2 months ago. She was supposed to be buried on Saturday, May 5th. The burial was, however, conducted on Friday night, about 12 hours ahead of the original date. She had been married to Stephen Wendaba for more than 20 years. But by the time she died, they were separated for 17 years. And with 5 children, 2 dead and 3 still alive, plus a dower of 8 cows and 100,000 shillings in cash paid, Stephen maintained that he had the right to bury his late wife, arguing theirs was just a separation and not a divorce.
As a husband who had paid dowry, he has a right to bury the deceased spouse, whether they were living together or separated, that notwithstanding.
Senior Principal Magistrate Agnes Mutua directed that Stephen had the right to bury his late wife.
The plaintiff proved the existence of marriage between himself and the deceased, a marriage that had not been dissolved legally, either customarily or through the court process. And I find the plaintiff is the one who is closest to the deceased in legal terms because he proved that closeness, and he proved the color of right to bury the body of the deceased, Beatrice Nyongesa.
That ruling by the magistrate meant the 2-month standoff over the burial of Beatrice Nyongesa was solved at least legally. But as plans to collect the body from Chiromo Mortuary continued, another standoff ensued when the deceased family indicated that they would be appealing against the ruling. Determined to bury his wife after 2 months, Stephen and his family moved quickly, and after collecting the body from mortuary, there was little time left, hence that decision by the husband to bury his wife at night. The argument by the deceased family was that for a man to rightfully claim the burial of his wife, they must have lived together throughout. On the other hand, the husband insisted that having paid a dower of 8 animals and 100,000 shillings, the deceased was still his wife, since there was not any divorce. And so it was a huge victory and a sigh of relief for Stephen Wendaba to finally bury his wife, who died of cancer-related complications. She was buried on his husband's farm in Mabuya village, Lugari sub-county, Kakamega County. Shadrach Miti, KTN News.
Kenya's coastal region plays host to various historical monuments which are rich in culture and great tourist attractions. And now over the years, though these monuments have weathered the pressure and wear of tear, today Tobias Chanji reports on a little-known monument that, however, still bears the same value as others like the renowned Fort Jesus. Take a look.
A staircase to 11 House, which is the first royal house to be built in Mombasa, came down crumbling. The staircase has existed for the last 250 years, according to Athman Hussein, who is in charge of antiquities, sites and monuments at the coast region.
And the 11 House is a gazetted monument
And as we know, Leven House is one of the first royal houses to be built in the island of Mombasa.
He said that there has been a gradual process of Mombasa Island being eroded by the ocean.
Now, the threat posed by climatical changes around the world, including here in Mombasa, is now real. And we can see this is the second year running. We have seen such huge collapse of rocks, or the part of the island coming down. Last year, there was a part of the English Garden, which we renovated about 10 years ago. It collapsed, and we lost part of the English Garden. And today, part of the staircase has also go down to the water. And if this will not be able to be arrested, we can assure that a large part of Mombasa Island will be lost.
Dr. Purity Kiora, who is the Director, Antiquity Sites and Monuments at the National Museum of Kenya, said that there are so many other sites that are near collapse.
This is not unique because most of the sites within the coast, most of our monuments within the coast are experiencing the same kind of destruction from climate change. Fort Jesus is one of them, and that's why we've embarked on the building of the seawall to protect the fort.
She said that as a mitigation measure, all stakeholders should come together to find a lasting solution.
So at the moment, this is a dire situation, which we should be keenly looking at and trying to address. Mainly all stakeholders who are involved in heritage, including the county government, including the national government, and any other stakeholders. The building right next to us, this is actually almost at the verge of collapsing.
I'm standing at the old town of Mombasa, where most of the buildings here have existed for the last 200 years. And their sorry state calls for immediate action. Tobias Chanji, KTN News, Mombasa.
It is mostly during emergencies that the glaring deficiencies in Kenya's health sector are exposed, whether it is in the access to health services or availability of medical commodities. On Health Digest this week, our health correspondent, Dr. Mercy Korir, visited the region surrounding Lake Victoria and now tells us what that situation is like over there.
At Lake Victoria's Usenge Beach, it is business as usual, sorting out various catch. These residents have options for health services compared to their counterparts living in the various islands in the lake.
It's either you wait for the ferry or hire a boat. Maybe a boat that is supposed to take 6 people. You're like 15 people in that boat.
These are the boats and a water ambulance docked at Mageta Island.
The purpose of that ambulance was for ferrying people from Mageta, those sick people, and any emergencies. It's supposed to operate within almost 4 islands. Many emergencies coming with this transport ferry. And transport ferry, it has some time limit.
It leaves here early in the morning, that is at 8 o'clock, strictly. Then it gets back to this place at 10:30, leaves at 11:30. Comes back again at 3:30.
In the event of an emergency outside those timings, especially maternity-related, hiring a boat may take more than 2 hours.
It's unfortunate for the women living on the other side.
Accessing their workstations is also challenging for the health workers.
When it's raining, you find that this place is flooded. You have to take off your shoes to get to the ferry, and at times the water is dirty, it's muddy.
These boats carry everyone and everything. We are making this journey to Mageta Island on a commercial boat that costs 100 shillings per trip. This journey is one made by many mothers with no alternative in search of health services.
You can see it's overloaded and there are no life jackets in the boats.
So where do you put a mother if they're in a critical condition and the boat is like this?
You have to carry blankets and spread on the small wooden seats. One instance I remember, it started raining in the lake and there were waves and currents and it was scary.
That is exactly what befell us as we took a boat to Remba Island. 3 hours of this journey felt like an eternity. Remba is one of the most difficult to access islands due to the rough waters. On a regular boat, residents take at least 6 hours in the lake.
Kama patrol boat yetu imeenda kwa kazi ingine, inabidi huyo mtu aangamie. Ya pili, medical supply sio nzuri. Saa zingine unaweza kosa madawa kwa hii unit yenye iko hapa.
Remba Island has an estimated population of 10,000 people. It has only 1 health unit and 2 nurses with no doctors, no clinical officers. In case of an emergency, the residents here are faced with limited options, and there's only one way out of this island, and it's through the turbulent lake.
The nearest is Sindo, where you can take around 30 minutes kufika. Alafu inafuatwa na Mbita, which is around 1.5 hour to 2.
This is when the lake is calm.
Tungeomba wale wahusika watuletee huduma ambazo zinaweza kutufaa hapa Remba.
The component of accessibility of health services is one that needs a critical approach if the dream of universal health coverage is to be realized. Dr. Mercy Korir for Health Digest, KTN News.
All right, so Weekend Express is taking its first commercial break, but we'll be right back. We have still a lot more in store for you. 1, international stories, plus 2, you get to meet a man who is quite talented, and of course, sportswear brand, the newest in Kenya. So stay with us. We have details on that right after this break.